computer needed a restart, so it's just firing up, but we can get started, and I'll call the meeting to order. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A roll call, Mayor Kratzky, I am present. Moko,
Present.
Rocco,
Present.
Hufall is absent tonight, Padilla,
Present.
and Eager.
Here.
We have a couple changes for the agenda today for October 18th, 2023. Under 6B, payments of bills, we have a correction that will need to be made. Under 6DI, we have the Legion Auxiliary Gambling Permit. And then on 11A, under the tax forfeiture, there's a second parcel that Steve's gonna talk about. I believe there's some information about it at the table. And then 11F, we're gonna revisit our assessment policy. Any other changes or corrections that need to be made?
No, if I may just elaborate a little bit more on
Sure.
on the bills, the correction is on page 35 of your packet. We could void out this check. The number is 64452. It's on the bottom of that page. And then we would replace it with check number 64497 in the amount of $51.87. And I guess that 11A item, I put a copy of an aerial photo on your table. The parcel that I'd like to add to that discussion, I'll give you, if I could, just give you the parcel number. It's right in the center there. It's 320373.
Okay.
000. So it's right in the center on the left a little. It's a long, narrow parcel.
Okay. Any other changes or corrections? Then if not, we'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
A motion by Eager,
Second.
seconded by Padilla. Any further discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Comments, updates, and concerns? Do we have any citizens here that would like to speak tonight? No. Okay, any updates from council members? And city staff? Nope. Okay, then we'll move on to tonight's consent agenda and take a motion to approve it with the changes noted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Eager, seconded by Padilla. Any further discussion or comments? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried. We don't have any public hearings scheduled tonight. Communication requests and petitions. Under 8A, we have Ron and Sarah Kirsch utility bill reduction request. Is that something we want to address later in the meeting or not do that now?
This would be for now.
Okay, okay.
Okay. In your packet, there is a letter from Ron and Sarah. And they're both present this evening, and they can kind of explain the situation or what happened. Basically, they had a major water leak at their property at 425 Sibley Avenue. For 2 months, they experienced quite a bit of water usage over and above their normal. Their normal, I think, and they can test or correct me, but I believe it's around 26,000 gallons a month. And then the month of, I think it was August, they had 49,000, and then September was 110,000. So obviously, they had a pretty extensive leak. It was in a rental unit that they had the leak. And so, again, they're here this evening to request credit or reimbursement on, they've already paid both of those months. So, that.
Okay, so we can invite you up to the podium. You would just introduce yourself and provide us with your address for records.
Our address, our home address?
Yes.
Ron and Sarah Kirsch, 820 Lincoln Avenue East, Gaylord, Minnesota.
Thank you.
So, yeah, while we were on vacation, we experienced a leak at our rental unit, 425 Sibley Avenue. And we didn't find out about the leak until we got the bill. Nobody in the apartment notified us of any leaks before we left or after we got back from vacation. And it's hard to tell. I don't know when the leak started or when we fixed it on September 15th. So the leak occurred sometime between July 14th and I want to say September 15th. That's when we actually fixed it, because we didn't find out about it until I came up to pay. I talked to Jolene about it on the 11th of September, because the bill came out on the 1st of September for that time period. And so I talked to Jolene about it, and she had told me that they had given us a notice, but we didn't get the notice. I don't know what happened to the notice. Someone from the city put it on our door at my store, I'm assuming, but we never got the notice, so we didn't know we had the leak. Anyway, so then when I came in to pay the bill on the 11th of September, it probably was still leaking at that point. So we took action and fixed the leak as soon as we could. Like I said, none of the tenants notified us, and it was a pretty bad leak. The toilet actually was the culprit, and the float on the toilet was totally broke off. So I don't know how you can not know that that is happening, but the tenants are sometimes not real forthcoming with things like that, so.
Can't you charge the tenants for that?
I don't know if that's even possible.
Why?
Can we charge the tenants for that?
Tenants have so many rights, you can't touch them.
I don't know.
It just, they got an 800 number right to a state lawyer, and it's like, you can't ask them for anything, you can't, we've run into this before with, it's kind of crazy. I guess what we're basically asking, I don't know if there's,
Just a
if you've
reduction.
done it before, just to, maybe
We're taking into
knock some from the
consideration.
sewer charges off of it or something, just, little, it was a leak, it's our building, we're responsible for, the building and what goes on, but, I don't know if you guys in the past have, issued somewhat of a credit on the sewer side of the bill, the water was used, and, I guess it all goes through the sewer system, but,
What have we done that?
So basically, we paid an additional $684 in 1 month time frame for water that went right down the drain. If it was our own house or something, we would have obviously noticed something like that, but like I said, tenants don't always give you a heads up on things like that.
I just have a couple questions, if it's okay. So do you charge the tenants individually for water then? No, so it's included in the cost of the rent, okay. But you know what apartment it was leaking and that was causing all that. And then you said that the bills, you had 2 months that this problem occurred in. 1 month was $49,000. extra, and then the other one was like 110.
Well, the leak must have been from, between July 17th and, I'm thinking,
September 15th.
September 15th?
So that was on, well, I guess the reason I'm asking is that would have been two separate bills on it was on. So when you got the first one, did you notice that there was an increase in water and just didn't think anything
Yeah,
of it?
it said 49,000 was
Yeah.
used, when normally we go through like 20.
Oh, okay.
And so I came up here to talk to Jolene about it because we were just basically getting back from vacation, going through our
Yeah.
bills, and I paid it on the 11th. And that's when I noticed the 49,000
Yeah.
usage came up here. And,
And then did you get the other bill after that then for the,
yeah,
okay.
but we fixed it on the 15th of September, so it wasn't a full 2 months.
Mhm. So you said $684, is that, was that
Is
your,
what we paid an additional, over what we normally would have paid.
for both those months?
Yep. It was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not sure what resources the city has with these new systems. And I guess just, maybe for future thinking, and my understanding is the city has a way of, detecting, these leaks at times. I don't know if it's done during reading or whatever. In
Well,
this case, they tried to get a hold of us, which would have been great, if we would have been around, but we
Yeah.
were gone. If they can't get a hold of somebody or nobody, is around, maybe a telephone call. It's a lot easier to call somebody up from, across the country somewhere and say, I got a leak, can you go check that out for me?
that
A
emergency.
toilet, we really stress to our renters, when they rent, and it's in the lease agreement. If you have a faucet that just has a little drip, anything with water, let us know right away. And this guy here, we walked in the door downstairs and Sarah said, well, I can hear it. And I said, well, that's gotta be somebody
In the
taking
shower.
a shower. I said, there's no way there's water can be leaking that much. And
Yeah.
she knocked on the door here, they were in bed, and yeah, it was the toilet thing was leaking, and they don't have a clue, some of these people, so.
Mhm.
But anyway, we're wondering if there's any, anything that, you guys have ever done in the past, I don't, with water leaks that, maybe knock something off the sewer side of the bill or whatever.
The sewer side is actually cost more than the water.
I don't know if you've ever addressed, if you have a policy for things like this, or you don't have policies, or.
Well, I can tell you, when the city replaced all the water meters, the automatic water meters, quite a few years ago now, probably, 7, 8, 2012, wow. Okay, so 10 or 11 years ago now.
Yeah.
So the city spent a pile of money to do that, and one of the benefits was this, having these red flags pop up. Sounds like, everybody tried to do the right thing here. When we went through that, though, I remember there was a handful of instances that there was some, $5,000 to $8,000 discrepancies from the old readings on the meters. And not to say whose fault it was, the city wasn't doing yearly annual checks and all this stuff, and maybe people were writing down the wrong numbers unintentionally even, or whatever. So, there were some extreme examples, like $5,000 to $8,000 deals, and now.
I think I remember that a little.
Yeah,
bit.
and, there was just a handful of them, there wasn't a lot. But, I would say nowadays, the city spent the money for that system. Quite frankly, the city could have a water leak right now, and it might be days, even if they can find out that we're losing 100,000 gallons per whatever amount of time frame. If nobody has reported it yet, it's still happening somewhere. It might be hard, it might be by a water body. It might be by a ditch. It might be hard to find. So
the city always has, you know, you have your toilet to monitor. The city has how many miles of water main to monitor and find that leak in a timely manner. So that's our maintenance, our eternal maintenance, I guess, as a city, so it's just hard to, I don't think we have a mechanism in place to really.
Well, I don't know, have you got the date, Steve? I guess we discussed it, when they tried to notify us, and, you know, I guess we were out of town, and,
Yeah, it would have been when you
I
were on
guess-
vacation, so during that period of time when you were gone.
you
And
know, so they did,
we do a door hanger, basically.
they
If
did
they're,
have
if you can't talk to them directly, they'll do a door hanger, and that's what they did here. Because there was, obviously the store was closed and you were gone.
Yeah,
we've had, you know, small issues like this before where the city has come up and said, we think you might have a leak, and, you know, we run over and we check it right away, and, you know, we'll find something and we get it taken care of, and, you know, that would have happened this time if, you know, it just so happened we were on vacation and, you know, the notice wasn't, you know, whether it was put on hung on the doorknob or whatever it was.
So you said you came up, you fixed it on September 15th.
Yeah.
When did you come and talk to Jolene the first time?
I think it was on the 11th of September.
That was the first time you talked to her about it?
Mhm.
Even though the month before you had the larger bill? Well, September 11th would have been the first, yeah.
That was when I got the bill.
That was the first
bill.
one.
Yep.
And October's bill is the bigger one. So if you fixed it on the, I'm just having trouble with the dates here.
Yeah, see, maybe it wasn't so bad in the beginning, is what I'm thinking, and then the handle broke off completely on that toilet, and it just started gushing out. I don't know, because it was only a few days. From the time I came up and talked to Jolene, that we actually fixed it.
Yeah,
So
I think we have.
It's really, it wasn't leaking for 2 months. It was leaking probably, well.
It just overlapped with
it's-
two billing
yeah,
cycles.
It's overlapping, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's like,
That's where it gets confusing.
The 49,000
It's a
would have
3-week
been
period,
August.
I suppose, you know, where that could have
August
leaked, you know,
15th.
just so
Well,
happened.
the bill came out.
But that
And
would
we
have been
didn't
for
know about it
August.
until I got the bill in the mail, which would have been September.
Right,
First
so your
or third or
September-
fourth or fifth, whatever.
So your September bill would have been August usage, so that would have been, the 49,000 would have been in August. The one you just received here in October, that's September usage, so that's your 110,000, so it's August, September.
Well, just a second here.
So your bill from the month before.
Right,
your
and
usage for the month.
so the 49,000 is, I paid it on the 11th of September.
Yeah,
And that's when I talked to Jolene, because that's when I found out there was a leak.
okay.
And looking at the 49,000,
That would have that was the usage though for August is what I'm
Mhm.
saying, that's all I'm saying.
right. Mhm.
Oh. Okay,
No,
no, that would have been July
July
15th to
15th
August.
to August 15th.
Got it in September,
It's right here.
yeah.
Mhm.
We're talking September and October bills. Just
I don't know.
just information here. I don't think we've really had much of a history as far as giving breaks on this. We don't have anything in our code. If somebody has a spike in their usage, you know, we do it out of a courtesy, and that's not uncommon. A lot of cities do that. You know, we contact a property owner. Nobody wants them to have a big bill. So we do that, and we've done that for years. I just want you to think about this too, as you're considering this. You have to be able to justify, you know, if you give them a break, you're gonna have to be able to justify the next one that comes in the door and ask for a break too. So it's just something to be aware of, you know, what instances or what occurrences, and trying to distinguish between the requests, you know, the circumstances, because there's always gonna be a next one. And these kind of things, accidents happen, and that's just unfortunate. Over the years, I've experienced this kind of thing a few times, and all kinds of different things happen. I mean, it could be the kids that leave on the outside spigot. I mean, no parent knows about it, and there's running water. Or somebody's not away from their home, and they have something happens in the home where the electricity goes out, the furnace goes out in the middle of the winter, broken pipe, and then they got a serious mess. Those things happen, and accidents happen, and how you want to handle them, if you want to put the responsibility solely on the property owner, or if you want to consider these things. Certainly, I believe the property owner does have some responsibility, if not all the responsibility in these. Again, accidents occur, and I certainly sympathize with what happened here. Dealing with tenants doesn't always go as smoothly as you'd like it to go. But I guess some of the question becomes too, is the city liable for that? Is the city on the hook, or should the city be making the call? And, you know, the water still goes through our systems. There is a cost to that.
That being said, anyone else want to comment or share their thoughts?
Well, I do empathize with you, I guess.
Well, and I think, you know, ultimately it's, you know, the owner's responsibility. I guess it's, you know, I don't know how often things like this happen. I guess if I was sitting on that side, I would maybe look at it, you know, maybe a little public relations, you know, people have something like this happen, you know, we can help them out a little bit with something, you know, I guess if it's, you know, you guys don't have a policy, maybe it's something that, you know, you look at for future. If you don't wanna, you know, touch it, then, you know, that's something that, you know, you guys will have to decide, but.
It's a tough deal, and, you know, we talked about this a number of years ago. Every drop of water that's measured through those meters, there's a real cost to the city, obviously, to purify that water and push it out. And you guys are good local taxpayers like the rest of us here at the table. We gotta look out for everybody in town too, and it's I think it's a tough deal, but, and we have some pretty big water users in town. The next one that walks through the door could be tens of thousands of dollars, quite frankly. So I'm not,
It's a real tough position to be in, I'm sure you understand, for you as well as us. And nobody wants to say no to you, but on the other hand, you know, it's the
Well,
taxpayers' money that we're.
You know, I understand the city's position. Like I say, you know, if these were really isolated, I don't know how often, you know, stuff like this happens.
Yeah.
And like you say, you get, you know, some big entity and it's, you know, $10,000, $20,000 and, you know, it's, you know, you can't be spending your time looking at each one individually and going through, you know, you almost have to have an investigator to figure out, well, exactly what happened, you know? So.
right, you know, and water is one of the few things that we have that we can measure very accurately.
Yeah.
And the rule of thumb was always that everything that's pushed through that meter should get paid for. You know, it's hard to measure the snow plowing and a bunch of the other things the city does, but selling water, the city's very good at keeping track of I believe it's measured every quarter gallon or less.
Well, Aaron, as far as action, we need either a motion to consider a credit or no motion if consensus is to not reimburse. The council's feelings.
Thoughts? I just feel like we're kind of,
Stuck.
yeah, we don't really have a policy to address it, and
Right.
it's kind of a can of worms, but we do hear you, and
Definitely. You know, it seems like more people are coming in and asking for.
And it's hard too, because like one of my thoughts was, you know, maybe we look at our notification process, but with how often people change, I mean, not you guys, but a lot of people change their phone numbers. I mean, that's not an easy fix either.
Do you, that emergency thing that you use for like snow removal, is that an option for notifications of leaks at all?
She's talking about like the code red, where you get notified of,
Okay, thanks,
I was
Ty.
here. Snuck in,
He was here earlier.
was he?
Yeah.
I didn't see
So I
him.
have talked a little bit about Jolene about that, about just putting everybody who's on a water bill on that red alert, so we can do something like that. The problem is, about a third of the people that are on the water bill don't even have a phone number. So,
That we don't have.
that we don't have, you know, we just have addresses for a
But-
lot of it.
If they do, I mean, that's kind of like,
We had talked about that before for leak notices,
Yeah,
so
I think it would be
you
a
could
nice
automatically
thing.
phone call or
like if you
text.
don't have a phone number, I can't help it. There's not much else I can do.
Right.
If you're not signed up with the system.
Right, if you,
'cause
if you
we
don't go
some-
through those steps, I can't do any more. But if we could do a little more to try
Right.
to prevent it, even if it's,
Yeah, that's something the city council will have to approve,
sure.
to put them on, everybody on that red alert system that we have. Cause we had, like I said, we had talked about it before, cause it'd replace the door hangers, cause like I said, the door hangers, you know, if
Go
you put it
away.
on somebody's front door, well, they never use the front door, they use the
been
back
pretty
door
windy.
type of
Or
thing.
it's a windy day,
It's
or,
been
you know, a
pretty-
storm,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of
Usually
the
goes in and
old-fashioned
goes
thing.
away.
Just for the meter reading side of it, I'll point out that what we got now is basically, if you went around and hand read every meter ourselves, this basically just does it electronically, so it's a lot quicker, so it's no different. They do have systems that, it's the upgrade to what we have, it basically, reads them every day. And that's what, but you're talking $100,000 for that system. So, it is out there, but it's not something anybody around here has. It's kind
We'd
of
have
a
to
big-
raise the water rates quite a
Kinda-
bit every month.
Well, it's kind of a big city thing, so basically, this is just an electronic version of what you do hand reading, and it's accurate, so.
You used to have a machine or something, computer thing, where you could tell whether there was a intermittent leak or
So,
a serious leak.
yeah, so that's a,
Is that a thing
it's a data log.
Mhm.
So what you do is you go down to their meter, and it basically picks up 90 days of the past 90 days of information and puts it on a graph. So basically, if somebody doesn't believe they have a leak, or usually you get there's no way I use that much water complaint, and you can literally knock it down to the hour that it started and see it. But that just, like I said, I can tell you when it was, and that it was leaking, but I can't tell you what's leaking. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just for some self-care, I can tell you, having some pipes that broke in my house this winter, that was vacant at the time. What I found out is you can put something around your pipes to tell if there's flow going on, and you'll get an alarm sent to you. You know, you can get them pretty cheap at the hardware store. Kind of something that I found out about after the fact, but the plumber was pretty, you know, he wanted to make sure that I understand that they made those, because I didn't have any in my house anywhere.
And the hanger tags, I know she does when she writes all those out. Like if she'll actually cause it'll tell you if it's an intermittent leak or if it's a constant leak. So she actually writes that on the tag, so. But yeah, it'd be nice to upgrade that to, so you get a phone call instead. That'd be nice.
Does it cost more money, or is it just?
I guess
be
I
the
would
same.
consider that a
Yeah,
win, just to get that far, you know, we've had, like I say, we've had these issues before.
Never
and
this
We've
serious.
gotten, well, we've always been around, and we've gotten notified, and we go over and we find them, and we take care of them, and it doesn't get to this amount, you know,
right.
it just so happened that we were gone this time, and
Yeah, and the way the
kinda-
system works, we try to read the 15th of every month. So if it starts leaking on the 17th, it's
Say it,
28
yeah.
days
yeah,
before
we
it
took
gets
off
read
on,
again,
you
so.
know, the 17th.
Right.
Yeah, if it started leaking on the 20th and leaked until the 15th, that's.
Right.
There's no,
So we'll definitely be bringing that to council then, if that's something you guys want us
Yeah,
to do.
so I'm taking consensus from tonight is no motion required,
Just do it.
If we can
But if we-
upgrade our,
upgrading our notification
Okay,
process.
we can do that. I'll talk to Jolene tomorrow.
Is that consensus, that my understanding everyone's thoughts correctly? Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay, well, thank you both very much.
You affected change.
Yep,
So you're not gonna write us a check or anything, then tonight we'll leave.
you can grab a.
Are you sure you don't wanna stay?
We enjoyed your company.
We did.
Steve already said that this was gonna be kind of a boring meeting, so
Liven it up a little bit, thank
we
you.
tried to bring some excitement to it.
Yeah,
so
thanks for that.
We're gonna go.
Thank you.
All right, well,
Thank you
thanks.
both
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, getting back to our agenda, 8B, the only ottle thing is the Sibley East PCO trunk or treat on the, that should be October 28th from 4 to 6 PM, and I'll be there representing the city if anyone wants to come over and say hi. Okay, moving on to department and committee reports and action items, we can go down to Public Works. Ty is going to talk with us about snow hauling quotes.
Consensus was a no.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I only have one snow hauling quote for you. The other one did not come in. I asked them both last Monday, and the other one still isn't here, so. The one I did get was from Circle F Farms for $135 per truck per hour. Last year it was 125. The year before that was 105. Most of that's fuel costs and stuff like that. We've had really good luck with Circle F. They're local, so they've been here every time we've needed them. So I guess I'll ask council to approve the quote for $135 per truck per hour from Circle F Farms.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Eker, seconded by Moko. Any further discussion or comments?
I just wanna ask something, Ty.
Sure.
Ty, is there a way that we can like set our price that we wanna establish for, the snow plow removal, and then you send that out? Or is this the way it always works?
This is kind of the way we did it.
Okay.
When I first started, I think we got a really high quote, and that forced us to go other places. So we asked a couple places to put, and Mueller's at that time had the low quote, and they did it for years, and
Yeah.
they finally didn't want to backed out of us in Arlington and a couple other towns, and we got Circle F had been trying to get in here for a couple years, so yeah, you basically kind of take what they're offering, you know. But yeah, when you ask for a quote, you just basically tell them how much, because I want up to 3 trucks max, and how much per hour per truck. So that way it's not a big mess, you know, that way it kind of evens out.
And it's within line with the going rate, Tony, per hour, for a truck sitting idle doing nothing all day, you're gonna pay the same per hour.
Yeah.
And it's just the prevailing wage, everything else, the diesel costs.
I think they're all pretty close to each other for the truck haulers.
Yeah, they don't wanna get into a bidding war, I don't think. I mean,
And
it's-
last year, I'm sure I haven't looked, but I'm sure the snow hauling quote was pretty high, because we used them a lot last year, but the year before, I think we used them maybe twice,
Yeah.
so it just depends on the year, you know, so.
And they have good-sized trucks, too.
Yeah, they're 5-axle trucks, so they're good size.
Any other questions? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carried. Thank you, Ty.
Does anybody have anything else for me?
Doing a good job.
Street sweeping will start next week,
Awesome.
before anybody asks you, so. We're trimming trees right now, trying to get all the overhangs done, so.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Could have trimmed mine on the other side so they'd be even
Yeah, we had
now.
2 trucks full of chips yesterday, so it was an all-day deal.
So you're still looking in that leaf vacuum then, huh?
So,
Thanks for all
you.
your hard
Yep,
work, Ty.
Thanks, Ty.
thank you.
Okay. Next, Police Department, we have Chief Eichten here to discuss police shift schedules.
Actually, it is working now, great. Evening, everyone. Just have one item on the agenda tonight, basically, as the mayor said, talk about the schedule. I'm not, I guess my personal opinion is I'm not necessarily looking for you guys to solve my problems or solve our problems, just kind of want to let you know what's going on, what my thoughts are, and then see if that's okay with you guys, or if you have any extra inputs, comments, or concerns. So basically, we have one part-time officer right now. That officer, unfortunately, is gonna be out for medical leave for approximately 6 months, starting at the end of this month. And then we won't have any part-timers to help fill out with vacations, sick time, when officers wanna use comp time, things like that. So basically, I guess just kinda let you know, we're gonna do the best we can, move shifts around, switch shifts. You know, if a night car calls in sick, we'll switch the day car to kind of a modified afternoon shift type of, you know, instead of that day car working like 8 to 4, we'll maybe switch them to 2 to 10, and then at least we'll have coverage from, you know, 6 in the morning till 10. You know, just kind of letting everybody know they gotta help out, and ultimately the city controls the schedule, so, you know, if we gotta switch somebody short notice, well, you know, they're gonna have to realize they're gonna have to put up with that for at least the next 6 months, so. Kind of another thought I had is if they want, you know, hey, I wanna take vacation on Friday, well, sorry, you can't. I'm thinking maybe a 3-week to a month notice. Anything after that's probably gonna get denied until we get, the part-time officer back, if we can't make something else work, so. Just kinda wanna let you know, we're gonna do the best we can, but with 4 people trying to get 24/7 coverage or close to it, you know, 7 days a week, unfortunately, sometimes we're, you know, gonna go without coverage. The sheriff's office, they have guys on 24/7. And I'll talk to the sheriff and let him know too, the days that happens, but they'll still respond to any emergency calls, the non-emergency things. If the deputy's not willing to take it, we'll just, I guess, have to wait until the next officer comes on duty, so.
Do we still, part-time opening position as always? We just
Correct.
haven't had any bites on that, right?
Correct. There's been, let's call them rumors of potential, but reached out and have not gotten any applications, unfortunately, yet. So maybe there'll be something in the pipes coming, but as of yet, we have not received any applications, but we are still posting.
Can Winthrop help out?
Good question. Talked to Steve about this too. I have reached out to the chief again a second time, basically saying, hey, we've upped our wages. Do you have anybody that can help out? He sent out an email, copied me on it to his officers, letting them know, hey, you know, Gaylord, Chief Eichton's looking for officers again. They've recently upped their wages. Is there anybody willing to help out? And I've gotten, unfortunately, nothing.
I just got a couple things. Going along with her helping out thing, I know you guys have talked about maybe helping out in each other's city when, maybe you don't have somebody for the entire weekend and there's just nobody you could put in there. Would they come over here and do anything within our city as far as to help out in those times, or?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tony, and kind of ran into a dead end there because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but Winthrop doesn't have anybody on during the weekends at all, during the daytime. So if they did, that'd be great, but unfortunately,
Yeah, nothing.
they got nothing.
The other question I have for you is, you talk a lot about the sheriff's office taking this on call, but if they have a big situation that comes up, will they handle the whole thing, or will they still call somebody from Gaylord? Like if they have a domestic where somebody's gonna go to jail, will they take that whole thing, or are they still gonna call?
It's a good question, and I don't know. I think to this point, I think it's maybe been up to the individual deputy or the sergeant on duty. Fortunately, you know, right now, the way it's been is we only have that 2-hour window between, you know, 4 and 6 in the morning. And I can't remember getting a phone call at all and being asked to come out or anything. And then, you know, I checked the ICRs in the morning, and fortunately, we really haven't had much of anything going on between that 2-hour window, so.
That's good.
Maybe this would be an opportunity too to just kind of share how the new schedule has been working out there since we implemented a few months ago.
I think fairly well. I think it's good. The guys aren't on call anymore, so obviously they love that. You know, the one guy that lives the farthest away, he doesn't have to get up, you know, let's see, the day car used to start at 7, would be on call at 5, so he was getting up at, you know, 3:30 in the morning driving over here. Now he doesn't have to, if he works days, doesn't have to be here till 8, so that's saving him a good 4.5 hours of sleep. you know, me coming in early really doesn't affect me. That extra hour, I've adjusted to that pretty easily. And, there's just that 2 hour essentially on-call time where, you know, I'm available, and fortunately, we haven't had to use it yet. I haven't heard any gripes from the officers about anything, so I think it's working fairly well.
How many shifts have you had to fill in? I mean, on an average basis?
I'd probably say probably, I guess, a weekend a month would be fair. You know, and then kind of adjusting shifts, like maybe if I know I have to work a Saturday, you know, I'll go home, you know, a little earlier, a different day when I know there's coverage. So, I guess up to this point, probably a few shifts a month. Nothing crazy, nothing out of, you know, I'd say about a couple shifts a month.
And you're able to work through that because a good part of your job is administration too.
Right.
So.
I'm not gonna say it's easy. You know, if I take off, let's say a Monday, Tuesday, because I know I'm working Saturday, Sunday, well, you know, nobody else, like the county attorney, city attorneys don't know I'm off, so I still get phone calls, and it's not like I can actually take a day off. You gotta go through emails and correct reports and stuff like that, so. But I mean, it comes with the territory, you know, I'm not complaining, I'm not saying it's too much, I'm just, you know, it's not ideal, but I mean, in a small city with staffing the way it is, I mean, just what you gotta do, so.
Just like construction season, I see an engineer back there smiling too, so a day off, the phone still rings, so we
Right.
do understand. Thank you
Right.
for your efforts.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not complaining, so.
No, I hear you. No, it's good I think the council appreciates the update, Charlie, so.
Sure, and with the updates, if you will, with the personnel committee, with the flexibility in our schedule, that definitely helps too, so I'm thankful for that.
Do what you gotta do, consensus.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these are all good options, and I think you just do the best job you can to cover it, and if you have other ideas, don't hesitate to bring them to us.
I mean, if you find a part-timer, I mean, if there's a way we can fast-track it, I mean, still gotta do the background. I'm sure there'll be time for a 2-week, you know, council meeting every 2 weeks pretty much, so, but whatever we can do if you do find somebody.
Sure.
If you're having problems with your hours or whatever, you can always reach out to Steve and let him know, because he sends us a lot of emails. We get a Friday email, and he's not afraid to let us know what's going on, so.
Right, and I mean, I don't wanna speak out of turn here, but I think, as far as I'm concerned, Steve and I have a pretty good relationship and pretty
Yeah.
open, honest communication with each other, and if I got a problem, I come to him and he tries to help me solve it,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, any questions you have for us, or you,
No, and then I just wanted, Steve just wanted me to give an update on the body cameras when we're done with this topic, so I'd like to talk about that when we're done with this, but I don't have any questions as far as this goes.
I think you have our consensus to do what you think is best covers the schedule, so
Thank you.
we can move on to body cams now.
Sure. So yeah, we got our body cameras a couple weeks ago. They're up and running, they're in service. We went with, obviously with lens lock. I have nothing bad to say about them. I think the cameras work great. I think their interface is easy to use. Everything's uploading good, audio's good, video's good. All the third-party contacts, I had let's call it a leaving the scene of an accident out at the truck wash, if you will. They had surveillance out there on their cameras as well as pictures. I sent them a link through the website. They uploaded everything. It goes right into our case. Everything worked great with that. It's seamless. Everything gets, you know, I can go in and put in the ICR number, the report number, label it how I want. Anything with the same case number gets kind of packaged together in a gift, and I can send one email with all that to the city attorney or the county attorney. Everything's working great, it's seamless, and it's actually better than I thought it would be. So I think we picked a good company.
It's good to hear.
So when you start your shift and you plug it in, it goes on, and it stays on your whole shift?
Yeah.
Do you mean
Yep.
like recording on, or
What?
do you mean like recording?
No, it only records when we want it to record. So like right now, it's on, right? But I'm not recording you. It's not recording your audio. It's not recording you. It'll back up, like if I hit record now, it'll back up 30 seconds, just like our squad cameras. but there will be no audio for that 30 seconds.
And there's
Yours
times
record
you
all the time?
need it off, like for attorney-client privilege, because there's, when I work with law enforcement, anytime we consult with our county attorney's office, it has to be off. So there's times that you,
Or if you go to the bathroom,
Well,
right?
I've caught myself a few times.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not recording, but, you know, if all of a sudden there was an emergency right then and there and I, you know, flew out to the squad car and turned on the lights, well, so be it.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to, you know, quick take it off, set it on my desk when I run to the bathroom quick, so.
So it records 30 seconds, so 30 seconds, if he's in the bathroom and then he runs out and turns on his lights on, 30 seconds previous to him turning his lights on is captured.
So the lights are the activator,
That is one activator.
one of them, and then you can also push it.
There's three, so the light bar in the squad will activate it, the gun lock to get out the rifle will activate it, and then the manual touch button will activate it.
and that's pretty typical. I mean, I work with the sheriff's office, Windsor PD, and Arlington PD has them, you guys. I mean, everyone, I mean, the minute we approach a situation, they're turning it on, so. And as soon as we leave, they can, you know, turn off the recording so that we can have a candid conversation. Sounds good.
Yeah, other than that, like I said, I think it's, so far so good, so. Everything seems to be pretty smooth and seamless and, yeah, I've got no complaints, so.
It's good.
Very good. Thank you for the update.
You are welcome.
Okay, moving on, we have city engineer Justin Black to talk with us about our 2024 street and utility improvement project.
I did bring with paper copies of tonight's presentation, so those are in front of you, and that's probably why everything's working seamlessly here, because I did bring some paper copies. Let me just get set up here. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just by way of introduction for those watching on TV, Justin Black, City Engineer. And in front of us tonight is the feasibility report for the 2024 Street Improvement Project. A copy of the report's in your packet, but I've put together about 20 slides here to hit some of the high points of the project and some of the recommendations in the report. So that, a number of things I want to discuss, just kind of the project background, how we got to where we're at, some of the goals and scope of the work, then touch on the actual project areas and the proposed improvements. We want to get a little bit into the assessment policy, and then we did prepare estimated rates for the assessments, cost estimate summary, and then I've got a real brief funding summary. I know Steve's got a much more detailed funding summary. And then there is an action item tonight, and that would be a resolution calling for a public hearing. That would be on November 15th. I can advance to the next slide here. There we go. So just going back in time a little bit, what really initiated the discussion was an update to the street improvement priority map, and we did that this past spring. If you remember, we shared some photographs of some of the streets, and some of them were in pretty bad condition. And that's really what initiated the 2024 project. We identified a number of streets that we felt were priorities for improvements next summer. We did have an open house event about a month ago on September 21st. We had that up here at City Hall. We had maps available and estimates of the assessments for people to take a look at. And then tonight we've got the feasibility report, and like I said earlier, the next step would be that public hearing. So as far as goals and scope, our overall arching goal is to improve the driving surface and extend pavement life. Generally speaking, we don't have any underground water or sanitary sewer improvements on this project. We do have some storm sewer, and I'll explain that in a minute. But most of all, we're just improving the surface of the roadway. And we're looking at 3 different improvements, 1-inch overlay, where there's no assessments, and then pavement and reclaim and overlay, which is an operation we've done in the past, which there's assessments for that, and same with the complete street reconstruction. The total estimated project cost, about $2.3 million. You may be looking at that and saying, gosh, I thought we were over $3 million with some of the original estimates. You're right, we were. Initially, we were looking at over $3 million, and I'll explain in a future slide here how we were able to cut about $1 million off the project. Project areas, Railroad Avenue, Tower Street, we've got the downtown parking lots, and then the alleyways adjacent to those parking lots, the Emmanuel Lutheran Alley, and then there are 2 1-inch overlay areas that I'll share on the map, Jefferson Avenue and 5th Street. I'd like to start out with just the Railroad Avenue. We've got all of the businesses listed here on the top. Railroad Avenue, it's about a half a mile from 3rd Street all the way out to Tower. And then Tower Street itself, which is on the lower view, and that would go from Railroad to where the street ends just past the water tower. So those are 2 project areas. This is a snapshot of the downtown, and we've labeled some of the businesses there, and maybe just starting at the bottom of the screen and working our way up. The parking lot between the library and Nisen's, and then the alley behind that parking lot or north of it. Moving further up the screen, Emmanuel Lutheran, the alley adjacent to their church is another project area. And then that larger blue shaded area is the area that we would propose or recommend to do a 1-inch overlay. In reviewing this with staff, I know that wasn't initially discussed as part of our previous outline of projects, but the street has gotten to a point where we're concerned that the next round of snow plowing may start peeling off that pavement, and we were able to find some ways to save some costs on some other parts of the project. So we are recommending adding that as a 1-inch overlay. Looking south of the highway, there we've got the post office parking lot, and then that alley just south of that post office parking lot. So I'm going to start out with some discussion about Railroad Avenue, and this is the area of the project where we were able to save a significant amount of money just by changing our approach to how we're going to improve the roadway. What we're recommending is a reclaim and overlay, and that's where we bring a big machine in, grind up all of the pavement. Typically, on other projects, after we ground up the pavement, we would take out some of that ground up material to make room for the new bituminous pavement. What we're recommending for Railroad Avenue is to grind up that pavement, but then leave it in place and actually raise the road about 6.5 inches. By doing that, we're able to increase the section of the roadway and achieve a 10-ton truck route design standard. When we took some soil borings out there earlier this year, we discovered that the road section that's out there is not a 10-ton truck route standard. It's below that. It's not achieving that. So our initial, the alternate design down below, we're initially looking at completely reconstructing the roadway, digging it out and putting in a 3-foot subcut. There's some challenges with that. Those businesses along there only have access to railroad. They don't have a back entryway. So if we were to take a look at that complete reconstruction option, we'd have to do it in multiple phases. It would require some road closures. We'd maybe have to build some temporary roadways. It's a little bit longer design life with a complete reconstruction, but that bottom bullet point is what really drove us to the recommended design. We can save about $1 million by doing the reclaim and overlay option. We would still improve the drainage by cleaning the ditch, install drain tile. We'd have that ability to maintain traffic with just short-term closures, so we could keep the truck traffic on the road while we're rebuilding it. The design life is a little bit less, but again, we're saving $1 million on the overall project, which still achieves the goal of improving the roadway.
Still a 6-inch, are you recommending a 6-inch blacktop mat, Justin?
6.5-inch black.
6.5, okay.
Yep, so we'd raise that road profile, and that actually helped with the drainage too, because there's a couple of locations out there where the road sits a little bit below the adjacent ground, so we could raise that road up, keep it open to traffic, and not have those big trenches out there where we're digging the road core out. So that's where the cost reduction came in to play. Tower Street, we also looked at a couple different options for Tower Street, and here the recommended design is the complete reconstruct. And that's really because of the amount of gravel that's out there. The base below the roadway is really insufficient. There's only about 3 inches of gravel. So the only way for us to achieve a 10-ton truck route design standard is to do that 3-foot subcut, dig out the roadway, fill it in with granular and new gravel base, and then a 6-inch bituminous surface. Now that will require a road closure. So we have talked with some representatives of Michael Foods about an alternate access route. We just started that conversation, but we'll have to continue to explore how they can get to their feed mill and the rest of their business as we rebuild that roadway. Again, those alternate design considerations just weren't feasible because of the existing base under the roadway. It's not gonna hold up, which is why the road looks the way it does right now. It's failing. Library parking lot, a couple things we wanna mention here. This is one of those areas where we would do a reclaim and full depth pavement replacement. We'd also replace the curb and gutter and adjacent sidewalks up in the library parking lot area. We'd stripe the parking lot. At the last meeting, we talked about adding some signs for designated library parking, so that we'd include that part of the project. There would be some periodic parking lot closures during the phase of this work, so we would try to notify the downtown businesses, do some postings on the city's website so that people know that there's going to be a time when they will not be able to use that parking lot. One thing that I want to mention about the library parking lot is there's currently an overhead 3-phase wire that goes diagonally across the parking lot. And Ty and I have had a number of conversations that this would be a good time to bury that overhead wire. What we're suggesting is that the city just hire a local contractor, get some quotes to bury that wire before this project starts, so that we could get that taken care of. I guess in the same breath, there's also been discussion about demoing the old well house there. And again, that's something that the city could consider doing. I guess if it's something that they want to move forward with, again, you could probably get some quotes from some local contractors to tear that down before the project starts. So those are two things that we have on the radar. We're fully aware of it. We've had discussions, Ty and I and Steve, but you won't see it in this particular street project. We're leaving that out as a separate project that the city can approach. That library alley, again, we're gonna reclaim it, full depth pavement reclamation, 6 inches of new bituminous pavement. There is curb and gutter in that alley, not all of it, but a majority of it, so we are proposing to replace that curb and gutter. And again, the alley would be closed during certain phases of the work. Jumping over the post office parking lot, again, that same reclaim, we're grinding up that existing pavement, removing some of the excess, and then putting down 4 inches of new bituminous. There is a center concrete median right now in that parking lot. We're gonna be replacing that concrete median. The 2 trees that are in that median are ash trees, green ash trees, susceptible to emerald ash borer, so we're proposing to remove those trees as part of the work. Again, striping the parking lot, and there'll be some closures. The post office alley, so the alley right next to the post office parking lot, we're looking at that process again of reclaiming and overlaying 6 inches of new bituminous. One of the comments that we received during the open house is some concerns about the drainage in the alley. It's a flatter alley typical section. So we're looking at a number of different options to improve the drainage. There's no storm sewer on that block, so we're not able to add any piping, but we'll continue to surface flow or surface drain it. And we're reviewing some different profiles that we can implement to improve that drainage. Emmanuel Lutheran Alley, this is the one alley that's a little bit different than the others. We're proposing a complete reconstruction. So there's only about 2.5 inches of aggregate base underneath there, and then it's just a less desirable material, which again, probably why the alley's failing. Also, this alley will have a storm sewer pipe being added to it. That storm sewer will provide some connections for the church roof leaders. We know that in meeting with the church, they've had some drainage issues. We may need an easement from the church for extending some of that storm sewer pipe. Ultimately, that storm connection will be down on Jefferson Avenue at the intersection of Jefferson and 5th. So we will need, we'll need an easement from the church. And then we're gonna grade that alley to drain away from the church. When we've been up there and reviewed it, right now it's draining towards the church, which is part of the drainage issues. And then Jefferson Avenue and Fifth Street, that's where we'll do that 1-inch overlay, and we've been doing this on a number of streets in the past, just to hold them together a little bit longer. Here's the city's assessment policy. We've talked about the alley improvements. We've modified that from 100% down to 70%. And maybe at the end of the presentation, we'll talk a little bit more about maybe another adjustment to that policy. I'll touch on that more in a minute. Otherwise, the rest is 25% assessed for the streets and the overlays and the reconstruction portions. These are our estimates for assessments. So the LF, again, stands for lineal feet. We're assessing the alleys on a per foot basis. So $95 per foot. And this is at the 70% assessment rate. So some of the properties that have 100 or even 200 feet of frontage on these alleys, the assessments add up pretty quickly. So that's one thing to keep in mind as we jump back and take a look at those in a few minutes. The other street assessments we'll do on a per unit basis as we've done in the past. These are very large lots, especially on Railroad Avenue, and there'll be multiple units. So don't think that the $11,700 is just an assessment for one of those businesses. Most of those businesses, the assessments are in the neighborhood of $50,000+. Here's a cost estimate summary, just starting from the top and going right down the list. Railroad Avenue still comes in at about $1 million, and you can see as we go down the list the other improvement costs. The Emmanuel Alley, just calling that particular one out, you can see the cost there is more than the other alleys, mainly because we have to rebuild the street, reconstruct it, and we're adding some storm sewer drainage to that street. The 1-inch overlay, about $73,000 is what that added to the project.
What, how many years do we typically do for, that people can, like the church or anybody else? Is it 10 years or?
For the street improvement projects, we've done 5 or 10. For the larger reconstruction projects that we've done in the past, we've done 20. So I think it's something that we'll have to continue to talk about, especially considering some of the assessments for the alleys are higher. Funding summary, like I said, I know Steve's got an agenda item specifically for this. We've provided a high-level look at it. About $750,000 in special assessments. The rest of the funding would come from other funding sources, and I'll let Steve detail that.
And Justin, real quick, if the bids come in lower, then the assessments get lowered too, correct?
Typically, we have done that. We've adjusted those assessments if they've come in significantly lower. Good question. Any other questions on any part of the project?
I have a question, back to this Tower Street.
Yes.
So kind of everything around Michael's Food there is all gravel. Is there any kind of reason why we can't just lay gravel on that road as opposed to laying 6.5 inches of asphalt?
Sure. So we did take a look at that. Right now, the gravel base is only 3 inches. So if we take that pavement off, we'd have to add more gravel to the roadway. And it would have to be a pretty significant amount in order for us to get to a truck route standard. When I say significant, probably 15 or 18 inches. So we'd really have to raise that road profile, which as you raise that road profile, it gets narrower. So then we're back to, do we dig the road out to make that improvement? And then we're kind of back to the reconstruction methodology. The other concern with the gravel road is just the maintenance. With the number of trucks on that roadway, it would get very rough very quickly. We're seeing that with railroad right now, where parts of that are virtually gravel. And in the springtime, the city staff just can't keep up with grading those and filling in the potholes. When you have that much traffic, and especially with the new feed mill now, we just got some concerns about the maintenance. And then the summertime would be dust, would be the other issue. So we've kind of gone full circle with the Tower Street conversation. How do we make this a roadway that's gonna last a long time, and stand up to the traffic loads? And really, the only solution is to build it to the correct standards, if you will. There is a cost to that. It's just over $600,000. One thing that I know we've talked about in the past is if the council would so choose, we could assemble the bid package so that that's an alternate. And then once we get the bids in, the council could make a decision if you want to include the Tower Street as part of this project, whether it's a $600,000 or more or less, that's our best estimate right now, or you could delete it at that point in time. But that's something that we could offer up. You don't have to make that decision tonight, but it's something you can think about, and we could take a look at that option.
Yeah, I just like the idea of reclaiming, there's so many roads that we can do in town.
Right.
You know, just that one street for that $600,000 with that 1-inch reclaim.
Right.
And there's some streets that they're not even on here, like Third Street. I don't know if you've driven down that lately, but it's got some massive problems going on there. So.
Yeah, Tower Street's been a tough one. It's, you know, in the years that I've been serving as city engineer, it's come up on the radar and then been pulled back, probably a number of times, quite honestly, over the last 10 or 15 years, where we've made it a priority. We take a look at the cost, then we pull it back. And I don't disagree that it's a difficult situation, but at the same time, it's in really bad condition,
Yeah.
and there's really only one way to fix it right, if I may. Good question. Any other questions or comments? I can go back to any other slides or. I guess, Steve, would you like me to talk a little bit about the alley assessments, or did you want to cover some of the funding first? I do have a handout here that provides some different options for assessments.
Yeah, why don't we touch on the alleys? Why don't we start with that?
Okay. Maybe Lori, if you could, I think I've got if you could go back, thank you. So I'm just gonna blow this up here a little bit. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go, that might be the best view. It's a little bit hard to see. Let me give you some paper copies here. I apologize for the small print.
Justin, you might be able to get it where it says 78.7, if you just keep blowing it up there.
Oh, yeah. Let me try that. Here we go. Thanks. Good suggestion. Yeah, let's see if we can go to 125. There we go. Okay, so on the left-hand side, we have the name of each parcel or each owner. You can see starting at the top there, KMA Design, and then down through the Legion and other entities. If you take a look at this column right where I have my hand, that is the assessments that would be levied if we followed the 70% assessment policy, which we reduced from 100. If you recall, it was 100, we reduced it to 70. If we follow that, you can see some of these assessment amounts for different properties. I guess I'm not going to call out every one, but you can see some of these are getting pretty high. If you take a look at the manual properties, they have several properties on both alleys. They've got the school is on the alley by the library, and then you've got the church, of course, on the other alley, so that starting adding up some of these assessment amounts gets to be pretty significant. The total amount for just alley assessments is about $171,000. So $750,000 being assessed on the project as a whole, $171,000 of that would be just the alleys. So in visiting with Steve, we've prepared two other options or scenarios that we'd like to share. The next column would be a 50% assessment rate. So effectively 25% would be assessed to each side of the alley. And then the last one, the last column, is a 25% assessment rate, 12.5% to each side of the alley. This would match what you're currently doing on streets. For on streets, so we assess 25%, so this would be that same approach, if you will. And you can see the reduction in cost. And then at the very bottom, I'm just gonna go to the extreme right. If we took that approach, we'd be assessing $61,000 versus $171, so it would reduce that assessment amount in totality. One other comment I'm going to make, and then I'll open it up for discussion or questions, if you will, is our recommendation to the city is if you'd want to look at reducing the percentage, just to clarify that would be for alleys that are already paved and are being reconstructed. If there's an alley that's gravel or grass and we're paving it, then we would recommend that you stick with the 70%, because that's a significant improvement. There's more cost there, there's more benefit. But for these couple of alleys downtown, these are some options. So I'll turn it back over to you guys for questions.
You said 700,000 total, or what was that?
750,000 total.
Okay, so to me, then, it seems like it would be more, I mean, 171,000, that's quite a bit to be assessing for all the other project areas. I feel like we probably should go down to 50, looking at some of these numbers. Which is why, I mean, you guys obviously, the alarm bells went off for you to.
Yeah, when you get assessment amounts this high, we've got some concern that they may be too high given the benefit of the project. So that's why we're bringing this forward.
I like the 50% and then the 70% for building the new ones.
I agree.
For what?
When you have to build.
Constructing a new paved alley, keep it at 70%.
What about like Manuel Lutheran they're having theirs completely redone, where they're gonna have new sewer and everything put in theirs. That's not taking it from gravel, but it's completely redoing it, which is an extreme expense to the city.
Right.
So why would that lower?
Because it is paved already. It is currently paved.
I'm tracking it, but they're completely redoing it, like, as if there was nothing there, right? They're putting everything in there, they gotta completely dig it out to redo everything inside that alley.
But the cost benefit,
Isn't improving as much. When we do the assessments, we have to look at the value that it's bringing. And since it's already concrete, putting new concrete down isn't gonna greatly improve the property value. Whereas where there's dirt and stuff, and we do put the pavement down, then that greatly improves the property value.
if we don't make it equitable, or I guess that might not be the right word, but forgive my ignorance a little bit here, but they can appeal this. And we don't want people to appeal assessments when on the front end, the city should recognize that they're probably out of line a little bit here, so.
And I would say, like, we already went from 100%, right, down to 70% recently. Now you wanna go from 70 to 50, and there's some of these businesses that, they're not paying for the parking lot, and they get the benefit of the parking lot. So all they're doing is paying a small portion of an alley, and they're getting more than just that. So how do you justify that at a lower cost to them?
If I may, I think Jessica said it pretty well. It does, in some respects, greatly come down to, are we improving the value of that property by this amount that's being assessed? And I think that was where our concern as staff came in, is that we were questioning whether or not we could justify that. And if we were challenged on it, could we actually win? And so that is, I think when you're looking at assessments in general, that's a good starting point, is looking at the property, what the current value is, and what we're trying to assess for. Yeah, the improvement is there. There's no question about it. But in this case, you have an existing alley, so it's already paved. I mean, it's an existing paved alley, so how much is it actually going to be increasing improving that property value if you're just simply replacing what's there. I think, in this case, we're looking at these numbers at the 70%, and, to be honest, I thought the 70% was gonna work well, going down from 100 down to 70. But now seeing, on this particular project, seeing what the numbers came back at, I can kind of look at it and I have a challenge, I guess, in some of these anyway, of saying, yeah, your property's gonna go up by this X amount, by just us repaving that surface.
And for me, the other side of it is yes, we're gonna cut theirs down, but who pays for that break that they're getting? Who's gonna pay for it? Because everybody else in town is gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
That's the piece that I'm looking at, they're getting that brand new alley, because they need it or whatever, but, so you're gonna reduce it for them, but somebody has to pick up that tab. And it's the rest of the citizens, that's what
Part of this,
I'm
too,
looking
is
at.
we're trying to stay out of a position where we're going to be challenged, where we're going to be in court over something like this.
Yeah, and I mean, if that's what you're thinking, because you guys are the ones with the expertise, is that this is where we need to go, then I get it, but, my piece is that just because we're lowering this for them,
I
that
understand.
everybody else is picking up that tab.
And I know it was mentioned, Tony, but 75% of all these projects are always paid by everybody in town for almost everything we've done so far. Everybody's street is paid by, we only assess between 20 and 25%, right? I mean, or try to get to that 25% assessments, right?
Well, that's why, that's the great thing about that reclaim, at 1 inch, nobody has to pay anything, they just cut that inch off and do it again, right? There's no assessment on it.
Right, and we don't even cut anything off, we just pay right over the top.
Oh, okay.
So there's just 1 inch over the top. The reason we don't assess for it is because it's not a perfect fix.
Yeah.
If you go out and drive those, there's still areas that are rough. I know they're cracking, we've reviewed them, they're holding up pretty well, but it's not a perfect fix. And quite honestly, I have received some comments about that where people said, you fixed the road, but it's not the same as what it looked like over on, Jefferson. And I said, well, those people paid an assessment, and we took a different approach there. So,
I think how you say in your report, it's a glue.
It's a glue,
It's a
right,
glue. It's a
right.
good way to look at it.
but Tony, you're right, it has been a great tool for the city to use, and it's helped us to hold some of these together a little bit longer. And I think we'll continue to look at that, just like Fifth and Jefferson.
Maybe this would be a good time to also mention, we've been taking a look at some of the other assessments, especially along Railroad Avenue. There again, kind of a similar kind of situation where we're kind of looking at, are we really increasing a property value by $80,000, $100,000+ by improving, that pavement on there? Justin has one option that I guess I'll let him share it, that I was kind of intrigued by as far as, when we award the project bid on the project.
So the assessment amounts along Railroad, like Steve had mentioned, are anywhere from $50,000 all the way up to $82,000. So there's some pretty significant assessments along Railroad. One of the options that we could consider is to hold the assessment hearing prior to us awarding the bid. The statute does allow us to do that option. In the past, we've typically held the assessment hearing at the very end of the project. Everything is done. We have the ability to hold the assessment hearing before we award the bid. So we would open bids on the project, the council would receive and table those bids, and then we would call for the assessment hearing. Once the assessment hearing is held, we could find out if there are any appeals or objections to the assessments. If there are a lot of objections, the council then has the ability to not award the project. The project could just die at that point in time, and we would not build the project. If there are no objections or only a couple, then the council can award the project and move forward. So it's a way in which you could keep advancing the project, but still provide some security, if you will, if you were to get a number of objections about these assessments.
Sounds like an instant appeal scenario. I mean, really, you know, people, if it's too much for everybody's appetite, hey, the cities, they don't want it to remain, it's almost in a gravel state now, right?
Right.
There you go. I mean,
So that would be kind of the option that we would lay out if there's a number of properties, whether it's railroad or tower, quite honestly, that are not happy about the cost, and we're assessing it at 25% rate, the city's picking up 75% of the cost, then maybe the direction we have to go is just to leave the roads and not improve them.
That's rough. You know, I get it, you're talking about how do you justify that, but I mean, every street project is expensive, and how do you say that that upgrade that just happened in front of my street did, you know, $20,000 improvement to my house value? I don't think it does, because the expectation is there that you're gonna have a street in front of your house. So I don't know how you win that battle.
I guess our thought is it gives you that option. We're not suggesting that you're gonna automatically go there, but it gives you that option. If you have a lot of property owners, for example, that are appealing, that might be a big time to consider whether or not,
Yeah.
are our assessments fair? Are they gonna be, are
Absolutely.
this where we should be? Or do we need to readdress that? Or do we just simply back away from the project? Hopefully that wouldn't come to play, but I think it's a better scenario than if you wait until the project is completed and then have that hearing, and then all of a sudden you run into that same scenario. Well, then the city potentially could be paying more for the project than what they were anticipating to begin with.
Right, and I like that idea. I do, I'm not
I
opposed
do
to that.
too, because then we can make some tough decisions, you know, if we need to, before we commit to anything.
When we did the first Railroad Avenue project back in '21, Justin had set up, and we met with the property owners that were being assessed on the project. I think that did help. He went over the scope of the project, and then we also visited what was proposed to be assessed to them, or what, at least at that particular time, what was the preliminary assessment. And I think that helped kind of set the stage or prepare them for what the project was going to cost. And we would be looking to do that similar approach again here.
Justin works his magic.
I think that, you know, some of the reasons why these questions are coming up is because this project is so different than any one we've done in the past, where, you know, typically we're in the interior part of town where you've got 6 or 8 homes per block. Here we've got these very large industrial park lots and along Railroad Avenue, and then the alleys is something that, you know, the city hasn't done an alley project like this. So we've got some different property areas, some different types of improvements, and that's why we've got just some different challenges, I guess, in front of us.
so there's railroad property to the other side though, right?
So the way that the city's policy reads is if on a frontage road, if we're not able to assess the opposite side, then they pay the full 25%. And that's the way the assessments have been calculated, is it's not split 12 and a half, 12 and a half. We're not able to assess the railroad because there's no benefit to show there. They're adjacent, but they're not using the street for access to their rail line. So we wouldn't be able to assess them. So this railroad's getting a 0 assessment. The folks on the other side of the street are paying 25%, which is one of the reasons those values, again, are a little bit higher than what we've seen in the past. But the road is in terrible condition. We've been asked to take a look at improving it. That's exactly what we're doing. We're building it to a 10-ton truck route standard that's going to last for decades. So there's benefit to it. There's no doubt about it.
And it serves that exclusive community there, so.
It serves those businesses, yes, that's correct. Yep.
Kind of jumped around here on the agenda. I mean, do we want to take a motion now on 11F on our assessment policy, or do we want to finish our street improvement resolutions?
I guess the probably two courses of action. The one would be, again, a consensus to change the policy for the alleys. And we'll have to, if there's a desire by the council to do that, we'd want to do that tonight so that at the public hearing, we could present the updated assessment amounts, because that'll be one of the topics the night of the public hearing is, what are the estimated assessment amounts? So that would be something you'd want to address tonight. And then, of course, the resolution, that would follow on the heels of your decision there, and that would call for that public hearing on November 15th. Steve and I have discussed trying to arrange some meetings to meet with as many of these property owners ahead of the November 15th meeting and have a conversation with them about scope of project and proposed assessments, so we can at least try to get good information out there. We had a couple show up for the open house. We had that assessment information at that meeting. We were hoping to have more people there, but they didn't show up, so we'll have to reach out to them.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-26, resolution receiving the feasibility report and calling a hearing on improvement.
Second.
A motion by Eager and seconded by Padilla. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So let's just go through our agenda and we'll come back to the assessment policy if that's okay. So 9H3, so we have the street improvement project financing scenarios, so now it's time for Steve to work his magic.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just, at this point, again, nothing has to be decided tonight. This is mostly just for information at this point in time, because some of this is likely going to change anyway. But the one thing I guess I did, I've talked about this before as far as we know that we're going to be bonding for this size of a project. Question is, how much are we going to be bonding for? Is there opportunities possibly to spend down the project prior to bonding? And so I identified three possible sources here. One of them, actually, I'm going to have to remove from the list here, and this is in respect to the street maintenance aid. I found this out after I sent the packet went out, but I touched base with the league, and yeah, the state legislature this past session did pass to provide or allocate again the street maintenance aid. They started this program back in 2015, and since then they've funded about 3 or 4 years. So this is available just for small cities. So it's not been a consistent aid every single year. But talking with the league, it appears that the funding is not going to become available, or they're going to allocate it for another couple years. So they've passed it, but it's probably going to take a couple years before we actually get the aid. And being it's only $50,000 in a scope of project this size, that's not going to be a huge amount for this particular project. So maybe for our sake, for right now, for sake of discussion, just remove that from our consideration as an option. The other two options, the sale of the farmland by the ponds, we've talked about that before. We talked about that with the 2021 project. At that particular time, you agreed to just hold off on that and possibly save that for a future project. We've talked about whether or not we would actually need that in the future. It's the belief that our ponds are sized adequately that can handle our future growth. Even if we have a large industry come into town, it's likely that we would require that industry to do pre-treatment, similar to like Michael Foods. Actually, they're a step further than that even. They have their own treatment facility. But it's not uncommon if we have a facility that comes in, a business, that we would require them to do pre-treatment. Generally, we would have to look at our permit that the PCA issues us and determine at that point whether or not we would be able to stay within the parameters that are set in that permit. So there would be some consideration. So overall, our ponds are sized pretty well, and we're in very good shape. And truly, this is, if you're looking at the most cost-effective way of treating wastewater, this is it. Mechanical plants are great, but they are extremely expensive. And the cost for continuing to meet the state's mandates as far as treatment continues to grow. It seems like every 5 years there's something new come out, and it's putting a lot more pressure and cost on localities to upgrade their facilities. So The farmland is an option. One of the things in our discussions last summer was in respect to the farmland itself, where we rent it out, and you had asked me to reach out. Remember, the current farmer, he made a proposal that we would not go out for any quotes, but he would be open to increasing the rent by 5% for the next 3 years. And typically, in the past, we've done 3-year contracts with him. I reached out to him and asked the question, if we sold that farmland out there, would you still be willing to hold that quote? And he said yes. So there's enough other farmland that the city owns, so he'd be okay if we happen to sell it, fine. We've actually got a provision in our contracts right now. If the city elects to sell the land, we can go ahead and do so. That's a very nice provision that's in there right now, and we would continue that, obviously. The other option I listed here was in respect to what we refer to as our 801 Capital Improvement Fund. This is one that I believe we might be able to do 300,000 we could take from there, but I'm also going to have to reserve a little bit the right to study that some more with our auditor. This will be more information will come out with our financial plan on that, but that might be another really good resource that we might be able to utilize potentially. So in your packet, I actually had Northland Securities kind of give you some scenarios here as far as what the bond payments would be. This is on page 117 of your packet. Going across the top, there's 6 scenarios. The first 2 scenarios would be utilizing these resources, the farmland, selling that, utilizing the capital improvement fund. So running a 10-year and a 15-year amortization. And as you follow those columns down, taking into consideration the assessments that would be applied. Now, this was going by the assessments prior to our discussion tonight. So we were looking at $750,000 for assessments total. So that would be, it's likely going to be something less than that. And then also there's some storm sewer expenses associated with this project. I think it was like $87,000. So that would come out of the storm sewer fund. That would not be monies that we would, or that wouldn't be costs that we would levy for. So going down further then to where it says the heading is tax levy revenue. The annual tax levy required, then you can go across there and you could see, like for the first scenario, would be $102,000 approximately per year. And then that's what a 10-year, and then if you go to the 15-year, that would be $75,000. Looking at scenarios 3 and 4, that's taking off the land. So we would not be selling the land. So that's what those scenarios would, that's how that's represented then. So obviously the expense would go up a little bit more because we're bonding for more. So the bond amount goes up, so our annual expenses would be more, and the levy, our obligations would be higher. The last 2 columns, scenarios 5 and 6, they represent basically not spending down the project at all before bonding. So this is basically bonding for the total $2.3 million project, and that gives you an idea of what those, going again down to the annual tax levy, of what those levies would have to be. So respectively, $207,000 for 10-year and $153,000 for a 15-year. Now, as I certainly we can go out further with a bond issue. We could go out 20 years. Ideally, you'd like to take if you can afford it, and you can, I guess, set a levy that you're comfortable with, that you feel that it would be able to basically the property taxpayers would be able to handle that burden. Then you could try to go with a shorter term. The idea, I think, is you pay less interest, so the cost overall is less with a shorter term, and you see it fall off of your debt service quicker. It's hard to see a 20-year bond fall off. I mean, it's getting out there pretty far, and it doesn't. You don't have to go by 5 increments. You can do something different. If you want to do a 12-year or a 17-year, you have that flexibility. I just use these as they're just easy examples. So if you're looking at something differently, you can kind of do a little bit of calculation and figure out how much it might be based on the years. So again, this is just information, and this is just, you know, this is probably the first one you're gonna see of these. We will probably be looking at some other options or variables as we get more into this. At some point here, though, you know, it would be helpful to know, you know, and I know one of the council members is missing tonight, but as far as that farmland, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to look at it for this project, or is it gonna be something we're gonna hang on to? Then we need to, it's just, we gotta let the landowner, or the renter, for one thing, know, because he's gonna be prepping it for next year. Well, it's not the end of the world, though, either, I should say, because if he, let's just say for sake of discussion, he does do some prepping for next year's planting, we could give him a credit for that, because he's renting other land from us. So there's ways of working together on that. We did the same thing this year when we had the land out by the compost site, when we sold that land and stuff like that. We knew that was gonna happen. He had prepped it all last fall. Well, he didn't do any planting this year, and with the knowledge that we were gonna be selling it. So we gave him a credit. So there's ways of working it out. He's really good to work with. And he's been a really good farmer, by the way.
Hasn't the city, since we've been doing projects, I thought we've been doing only pretty much 20-year bonds, going back many years. So, you know, that first 20-year bond is, you know, coming up as a budgeting tool for future councils that, you know, I know it's nice to do a 15-year bond if you can, but that'd be nice to look back on it. You know, we've been doing 20-year bonds for the last 16 or 15, 19 years since Jessica and I have been on council. I know, I thought that was the case if I recall correctly.
I guess I can't tell you off the top of my
Okay,
head.
but you know, as far as that, those starting to come up here in the next
Yeah,
5, 6, 7 years, whenever that future budgeting tool for the future councils, they have that debt fall off and they can do another project, debt fall
Yeah.
off.
well, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, you know, the lesser the term, obviously, the less burden it puts on you, the less cost, because you're not paying as much interest. So there are, you know, again, it all comes down to what you can afford and how much burden can you put on the taxpayers, and you have to make that judgment. But there are incentives, you know, going with shorter periods of time. It puts, you know, in the long range too, you know, when you don't have such a heavy burden with your debt, it gives you an opportunity then for other projects to basically move those up quicker or sooner than maybe you can when you have so much debt. And that's been, as you know, that's been one of our challenges. When we carry a heavy load, it does make it more challenging when you want to do these projects and when you have to do projects because of the conditions of, in this case, our roads. So, yeah, you can certainly do the 20 years. There's no, you know, you have to make that decision. The last assessment project you did was what, the 21 Railroad Avenue project, which included A Street. And with the assessments on that one, you did set the assessments to be paid back over a 20-year period.
But we don't have to make that decision tonight, right?
No, you don't have to make that tonight. This is just information. Again, the only thing that I would be hoping for or looking for from you guys is a decision on the farmland at some point here. You know, it would be helpful to know that maybe by the end of the year or at least by the first part of next year. That might have some factor on this as far as how we structure this. It would definitely have a bearing.
It's nice to have that sale as an option, so we can put some thought into that, give you an answer.
Get a vote from the council next meeting,
Yeah.
maybe? Scott's here.
It would be nice if everybody was here for that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, everyone should be here.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to unfinished business, we have just the second reading of the ordinance number 361, the fostering cats.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance number, do we need a motion on this, because since it's a second reading?
Yes.
Okay, so So a motion made by Eker and seconded by Moko to adopt ordinance number 361. And now we need to, or I'm sorry, I was gonna go into it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry. Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carried. 3-1. Correct?
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the summary of ordinance number
Second.
261.
Motion by Moko, seconded by Eker to approve the summary of ordinance 361. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carried 3-1. Okay, next, moving on to new business, we've got 319, under 11A, 319 High Avenue tax forfeiture, and then we are gonna add another, talk about another parcel on there too.
Yes, thank you. Both of these parcels, the other one that's, I put on your table, on this aerial photo, it's right in the middle here, it's that long, narrow one. It's the parcel with ID 320373, and then 3 zeros. Both of these are up for tax forfeiture. They're listed currently. The county is basically auctioning them off. It's an online auction. With any, once a property goes into tax forfeiture, any liens or assessments that are currently on the property, under law, they automatically go away. But for us, we do have the right to reinstate those once the property is sold. The reason I'm bringing these forward is because I've been getting phone calls or I've had questions from prospective buyers that are asking whether or not the city is going to reinstate those assessments once the sale is over. On the property on 310 High Avenue, which is where we removed the house right behind the hub, that one currently has about $26,000, almost $27,000. 18 of that, or over 18 of that, was from removing the home or removing the house. The rest of it, over time, was utilities. So with penalties and such, it added up over time, number of years. Before, think about how many years before it went into tax forfeiture, there was nobody paying on it. So over the years, it just added up. So anyway, $26,971 is the current assessments. What we would, if you elect to waive those, and that's what's being asked, all we have to do is give notice in the form of a letter to the county stating such. The other parcel that I'm asking for your consideration, the one over here on 5th Street, that one doesn't have nearly the assessments on there, about $349. So there's not much on this one at all.
Which one?
This one that's over here.
Okay.
Again, it was just some utilities that got assessed onto the property.
Can I pause real quick? Is Justin waiting for an answer on this? Can we just give him an answer on this so he can go?
Absolutely, yeah. We're just gonna jump around and go back to the assessment policy on 11F, and then we'll come back to our 11A.
If the council would like to make a decision, I will amend the feasibility report to include the revised policy for the alleys. And that's just a point of order. You don't have to reapprove the report. We'll just submit an amended feasibility report to City Hall that'll show the revised assessment rate and the revised amounts. But we should have that before the public hearing.
Consensus, or do we need a motion on this?
You need a motion, because basically we're amending our assessment policy to change the alleys that are paved when we reconstruct those from 70 down to 50%.
I'll make that motion. 70 to 50% on alleys that are already paved and constructed, as we discussed.
And still keeping the unpaved at 70%.
Correct.
Second.
Okay, motion by Moko, seconded by Eker. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
No.
Motion carried 3-1.
Thank you. I'll submit that report to you, Steve.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, now going back to 11A. We left off with,
I'll make a motion to not reinstate assessments on 319 High Avenue upon its sale, and also parcel number 32-0373-000.
I'll second it. Motion by Moko, seconded by Groko. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. Motion by Eker, seconded by Groko. Any further discussion or comments?
Question. You know, in the more expensive property, I just wanna ask, could we reinstate, let's just say $5,000 of that? I mean, it's still a good value if they think the value's worth $4,000, that the city recoups something of that, you know, not outrageous where nobody's ever gonna buy it or pay it, but I mean, do we have that ability?
I think you do have that ability. You know, the county's put a value on that of 4,000.
I'm so tired of the city coming up with empty-handed on this stuff, and
The only-
I want something to happen there too.
Yeah,
I know
that's
it
the
can't be-
risk. That's your
Right,
risk.
I'm thinking somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000, I mean, I'm not asking for the 26 here, but can we get something back?
The worst-case scenario is nobody buys it, then the county owns it, and it just sits there.
And the county will have to maintain it. And
Right.
it'll be
Right.
in their best interest to get it developed.
But it won't be on the tax rolls. And we, at our last planning commission meeting, this was a lot, we were talking about small houses,
Mhm,
the
right.
possibility. That's where I got a call from somebody, and I spoke to that person again this week, and they were very interested.
And I
That's
don't
it.
want to hinder that. You know, we got, somebody's calling Steve about it, that's great, but, you know, if the county ends up owning it, which they will, we have no guarantee what they're gonna try to sell it for, right?
No.
No, and that lot probably isn't worth, you know, $35,000.
So why should-
$40,000, but it's probably worth more than 4,000.
Why should the county get to sell it for $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever they, you know, and we don't get anything back? I don't know what the city's or the county's gonna sell it for, or try to hand it down to us for something. You know, we haven't had a conversation with the county about it.
No.
This is, you know, my view on this is, I agree with that. I think that a fee should actually be more, because we just talk about taking down this building that's gonna potentially cost $250,000, and the only thing we can do is do it while the taxpayer still owns it, because then we're gonna be able to put something back on him, and then here we are, 1 month later, saying, let's let this whole thing go. And I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with this guy walking away owing this amount of money and nothing getting collected on it. It's not right. We can't keep
But
funding
this will
these.
go to the new buyer.
Yeah, it goes to the new buyer, it doesn't
But
go to
it's
the.
gotta, we should be able to collect something somehow. And I don't wanna get rid of all of those costs just because of principle, in that we took this down and everybody said the same thing that you're saying about tearing this other building down. Well, if we keep it in their name and we take this down, then there's a potential for us to get something back. And here we are, that exact scenario, and we're not gonna get anything back. And I'm not okay with that. So I would say $5,000 on the low end.
I'll amend my motion to not reinstate full assessments, but $5,000 on 319 High Avenue, and no assessments on the lot 32-0373-000.
Who had the second?
We had yeah.
Will you amend your second?
Motion amended by Eker, seconded by Groko. Any further discussion or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, moving next to ordinance number 362, zoning code amendment.
This is an item coming from the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is in regards to adding solar gardens to the agricultural/rural residence district. As you know, we've had some solar gardens that the council has approved to establish in past years. We don't specifically have anywhere in our zoning code that allows for solar gardens. Basically, on page 125 of your packet, where we're amending it, right below that, highlighted in red, solar gardens, and right below it, letter M there, this is why we're able to do them as a conditional use. The planning and zoning can make the determination if it's in the same general character as the conditional uses listed above. So if it's in their opinion, they can go ahead and do it. The last one we did too was in our R2 zone, a residential zone, and that's out there by Mud Lake. While we have R2 in other locations in our community, the question is, do we want to have solar gardens, some of these other areas that are like around by the school and such like that? Probably not. And so the planning and zoning held a public hearing on this, and they're recommending that we would go ahead and establish solar gardens in the A district as a conditional use. So there would be a public hearing and all that, so there would be potential for any property owners that wish to provide any input to do so. This is just for your information. They've also talked about the solar garden that I mentioned down by Mud Lake. Then that property down there, being it's zoned R2, the next step, if you elect to approve this, would be to rezone that property down to ag. And then it would be a conforming property. So, but for tonight, it's just this proposed ordinance. And this would be considered reading number 1 if you adopt it.
So we're looking for a motion to adopt ordinance number 362, an ordinance amending chapter 153, section 153.047 pertaining to conditional uses in the agricultural rural residence district.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 362, amending chapter 153.
A motion by Moko. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Eker. Any further discussion, comments, questions?
Yes. Just a question, that's all. The area by where the school's at now, because there's cornfields right there, right now, what's that considered?
City property?
Yeah, the city property there. Can they put a solar garden there? Because it's agriculture.
R2, isn't it? What's it? By the school. Our farmland. You see the map?
But if I'm understanding this correctly, if the solar garden wanted to go in there, there'd be a public hearing, so there'd be an opportunity to express concern.
Right.
I think that's residential right now. Further out, it's ag.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's residential.
Right.
That was kind of the idea, that we would get this out in the outskirts.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I don't want it right next to the school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Business district.
15th Street. 13th Street?
13th, it's gotta be 13th. R2. It's R2 by the school, and then as you get out by 13th Street,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried. Next is the Oaks Pavilion Rehabilitation Project pay request number 6.
I do have a project update. I can either share it tonight or just send it out to you on Friday.
Send it out.
Contractor gave me a nice update. He sent out an email.
Email's fine.
Yeah, email's
Meetings
good.
get long.
Yep. So tonight we need a motion to approve the Oaks Pavilion Rehabilitation Project pay request number 6 to Atrius for $96,185.
So moved.
We have a motion by Padilla,
Second.
seconded by Moko. Any further discussion or comments? I want to say the pictures do look great that were sent
Yeah.
out on Friday. It looks really good. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried. Next, we're looking at 11D, scheduling a special city council meeting.
So this is looking at a joint meeting, be a work session meeting with county commissioners on Tuesday, September 7th at 6 o'clock over at the courthouse. The purpose of the meeting would be to meet jointly to talk about the old school and the future of that property.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Eker, seconded by Moko. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried. We already addressed 11F, so now, and if there's no closing comments, we need a motion to adjourn.
There's
No,
11E.
Oh, 11E.
Didn't we do that
We're
already?
super
You
excited.
left.
Nope,
No.
Those?
You did F.
11F. I skipped 11E.
Oh.
11E is resolution number 2023-27, resolution designating polling place location for all elections held in 2024.
This is a state statute requirement.
Mm-hmm.
At Emmanuel Lutheran Church.
Yes.
So moved.
At American,
Oh, what did I
American
say?
Lutheran.
American.
Manual.
American Lutheran.
That's what I meant.
Second.
Okay, motion by Eker, seconded by Padilla. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carried. Now, if there's no closing comments, we will look for a motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
Second.
Motion by Eker, seconded by Padilla. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.